In your consumer alert, historically, the holiday season is when the credit card industry tends to offer the best deals. But as consumer investigator Rachel DePompa found out, you need to be cautious before you agree to sign up at the register or online.
If you're looking to apply for a new line of credit, remember that bank will check your credit score. And Leslie Tane, a debt relief attorney, says when it does, that's considered a hard hit, and it could reduce your credit score by 20 or 30 points.
If you're on the border of good credit, it may not be a good time to have several banks checking your credit score. In addition, interest rates are super high. So unless you have stellar credit, you might find that your interest rates on anything new could be actually higher than what you're paying.
Tane says that includes introductory rates. She says you might find that even though the introductory rates on that new credit card is 0%, ultimately when the new rate kicks in, it's higher than the current rates of loans or credit cards that you already have.
If you have stellar credit, I would recommend contacting your current credit card banks and see if they have existing offers on your existing cards to either reduce the interest since you've been paying on time and you're considered a good customer, or if they have other financial products that you could go into that have limited impact on your credit and your other debts.
You can get a copy of your credit report for free at any time from annualcreditreport.com. And oftentimes your existing credit cards are also showing you your credit score each month on the app. With this Watch in Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.